Part 3. After David died, I stopped trying. I never dated again, never let anyone get close. What was the point? She would always come back. She would never let me be happy. And every night, I still hear her. The sound of her dragging that cursed gown. Always closer, always waiting. I moved again, far away from anyone I knew. I thought maybe if I stayed alone, she'd leave me alone too. But that's not how it works. She wants me to suffer. She wants me to know that she's always there, always watching. Sometimes I hear her whispering my name, just like that first night. "Come with me," she says. I don't know how much longer I can resist. I know one thing for sure. There's no escaping Princess Mara. She's never gone. She's always waiting in the dark just outside the door. And one day she's going to take me too, just like she took David. I spent months locked inside my house, unable to shake the fear that gripped my heart. David's death was ruled natural, but I knew better. Princess Mara had taken him, and she wasn't done with me. The sound of her gown dragging along the floors haunted my nights, even when there was no one around. My dreams were filled with her pale, twisted face. Every time I thought I could find peace, she would return, whispering my name, reminding me that I belonged to her now. I lost weight. I lost my job. Friends and family drifted away, unable to understand the terror that consumed me. It was a prison I couldn't escape, but deep down I knew I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't let her win. There had to be a way to stop her. One night, after another nightmare where I felt her cold hands closing around my throat, I woke up in a panic and made a decision. I needed answers. I needed to know how to end this, once and for all. I couldn't do it alone anymore. Seeking help. I drove back to the village where it all began, the place where Princess Mara's story was first whispered, and where I had first seen her. I knew there were still people there who remembered the old ways. My grandmother had mentioned them in passing. Women who understood the spirits, who could communicate with the dead and heal the living. I found Miss Adele, an old woman who lived on the outskirts of town. She had always been known as the village healer, though some said she was a witch. I didn't care what she was, as long as she could help me. Her house was small, but the smell of burning herbs and incense filled the air as I approached. Miss Adele opened the door before I even knocked, as if she had been expecting me. "I know why you're here," she said in a low, gravelly voice, motioning for me to come inside. "She's been following you, hasn't she?" I nodded, feeling a lump rise in my throat. "She won't stop unless you make her stop," she continued. "The dead can't rest when they have unfinished business." "But how do I stop her?" I asked, my voice trembling. Miss Adele's eyes, sharp and knowing, bore into mine. "You need to go back to where it all started, to where she was buried." I shivered at the thought. I had heard stories about her tomb, how it was hidden deep in the forest, sealed long ago to keep her spirit contained. But clearly the seal had broken, and she was free again. "You'll have to perform a ritual," Miss Adele explained. "You'll need to return something to her, something she's been looking for all this time." I frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Miss Adele reached into a drawer and pulled out an old tattered book. She flipped through the pages until she found what she was looking for. A drawing of a jeweled comb. "This was her most prized possession," she said, pointing to the image. "She wore it in her hair the night she died, but it was stolen from her tomb by a grave robber many years ago. She's been searching for it ever since." I remembered hearing the stories of how Princess Mara was buried with all her jewels. But I hadn't known anything about the comb. It made sense, though. She was so vain in life. Of course, she would be obsessed with her appearance even in death. The comb is the key, Miss Adele continued. You need to return it to her tomb and perform the ritual. Only then will she rest. I swallowed hard. And where do I find this comb? Miss Adele smiled faintly. It's closer than you think. The missing comb. I left Miss Adele's house with more questions than answers. The idea of returning to Princess Mara's tomb terrified me, but I knew it was the only way. Still, I didn't have the comb, and I had no idea where to find it. As I drove home, my mind raced. If the comb had been stolen, it could be anywhere. But Miss Adele's words echoed in my head. It's closer than you think. When I arrived back at my house, I began searching through old boxes and belongings, hoping for some kind of clue. Hours passed, and I found nothing. Frustrated, I sat down on the floor, my head in my hands. Please come back for part 4.